So do you think reading comics can keep you smarter?
Yeah,
Some
definitely,
research says-
definitely. Comics. I read books now because of comics. I was a reluctant reader growing up. I didn't like reading. I went through, at any chance growing up, I wanted to get away.
A Kangaroo Fern production.
Welcome
to Guerrilla Podcast, Fresh Eyes.
The beat that makes you feel good.
A weekly podcast that features interviews with social change leaders or individuals that aims to bring audiences good stories to motivate their own social impact efforts. Now, here's your host.
That's
Hello,
how I
This is
basically
Miko Santos from the Side Strip, and welcome
learned
to
read
Guerrilla
better, and then
Podcast,
from there now I read
Fresh
well.
Eyes. For this episode, we are discussing about superheroes and comics. Who is the oldest superhero? What is the most expensive comic book? I've been a fan of comic and cartoon since early years. So I used to watch when I was 7 years old. I was used to watch the Japanese cartoons like the Voltus Fight, Daimos, Mazinger Z, and of course the Gundam Wing, one of my favorite one. And during the high school days, I love reading detective comics and the Batman Legend of the Dark Knight. So whoever era, it's 1990s, 80s, you know what I'm talking about. It's all about comics and what is the social impact of comics to our daily lives today. I'd say if you're watching some previous Spider-Man movies, with a great power comes with great responsibility. For today's episode, we're lucky enough. We have Dan McGuiness,
Yep.
who is the owner of
Co-owner.
co-owner of Greenlight Comics,
Mm-hmm.
that is based in Adelaide, South Australia. Hello, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
How's your day today?
We had a busy day.
Busy
Busy day.
day.
Coming up to Christmas, man. There's lots of people want their comics.
By the way, who's your favorite superheroes?
My favorite superhero is a character called Invincible. He's from Image Comics, and he's created by what's his name? Robert Kirkman. He's the guy who created The Walking Dead and stuff like that. So I really, really, really love Invincible. That's my favorite character.
So, some people today, especially the millennial, who is 2000 up, who born,
Yep.
they don't know, because usually now it's all digital now. So what is comics?
Oh, comics aren't. I know, like the world is digital, but comics still are. Still, the majority of people who read comics do prefer to read them in real life, if you will. There are a lot of people that do get like the apps and stuff like that, but we find a lot of people will come in, if they read it on the app, they'll come in and then they'll buy the ones that they really like. And there are a lot of people I know that just don't like reading comics digitally. For some reason, comics just don't meld very well reading them digitally. I mean, there is all the stuff with the scanlations and stuff like that. But yeah, the majority of the people that we deal with, like they're brick and mortar comics.
So what do you think is the role of the comics right now in digital era?
I think the role of comics in digital era, at the moment, I think it's mostly like the big digital comics of stuff like manga and stuff like that. There is like comicologies, and all these like comic, apps and stuff. Marvel has an app, DC has an app and stuff like that. But I feel a lot of their stuff is released digitally. They do it a bit later than they bring it out on the books to give the books some time to come out. But at the moment, we don't get. Not many of my customers do quite a lot of comics digitally, kind of thing. But then you get the other side of it, you get stuff like webcomics. So webcomics are super popular, like stuff. And then eventually a webcomic, people will follow the artist, they'll follow the writer, and eventually they become so popular that they just get printed by one of the companies, usually Image or something like that. So you've got that side of it. More the creator-owned up-and-coming stuff is usually digital, but the more traditional superheroes and bigger companies are always just doing paper print.
So what do you think the future of comic stores like this?
Like this one?
On the era of digital. on social media as well.
I think there will always be comic stores, mainly because the publishers who create comics push them so hard, because that's where the majority of their sales come from, is through the sale of books. Even if it's books through, like Amazon and stuff like that, but it's still like people buying the book. So the future of comic shops, I think, will always be there because the publishers who make the comics really need the comic shops. So they support us a lot. And so I don't think we're going anywhere. The threat of everything going digital has been around for it's almost to the point where it peaked and now it's coming back down. So I think the comic shops are pretty safe. So the digital stuff has been around for 10 years now. So, and the comic shops are all still here. I mean, Adelaide's quite a small city and we've got 3 comic shops here. So that's pretty good.
So do you think reading comics can keep you smarter?
Yeah, definitely. Comics, I read books now because of comics. I was a reluctant reader growing up. I didn't like reading. I went through, at any chance growing up, I wanted to get away from reading. I went through all of high school without reading any of the textbooks that we were supposed to read. Just skipped it all. And but then when I discovered comics and graphic novels and stuff like that, I started reading them because I didn't feel like reading. It wasn't as scary, it's a page of writing. There was still images and stuff with it as well. And from there, that's how I basically learnt to read better. And then from there, now I read novels. There are lots and lots and lots of schools and libraries now that are using graphic novels to get kids to read. We sell a massive amount of our sales are to libraries and schools who want to get... basically, they've just realised that reading is reading. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter how you're reading. Those words in the speech bubbles are still proper grammar. They're still words and stuff like that. There's still narration boxes. You still have to use your imagination. It's just another way of telling a story.
So comics now from print to digital to movies right now. So why do you think the superheroes is more popular now? They converted to movies.
They've done a really... so superhero films weren't that popular around about 15 years ago. They were always around, but they weren't that popular. Then Disney bought Marvel and they created the Marvel Studios. And they decided that they were going to obviously they wanted to make really good films because that's what they do. And they did that by sticking really close to the original storylines and content that the original comics were about. Where other times, there'd been all superhero movies like a Superman movie or a Spider-Man thing, but they would just change it and do whatever, or executives would come in and, change a lot of stuff. Where Disney gave the writers and the directors a lot of freedom, I think, with their writing, but then they also wanted to keep it quite close to the original content that it was based in. And then all of a sudden, it just became, these movies started getting more and more popular, and more people started to see them. Now to the point, these films, you all know that these films are so popular that usually every summer blockbuster is a superhero film. That means that superhero films are making the most amount of money in the world. I think actually Avengers Infinity War, was that that has officially now made the most amount of money of any film of any time, and it's a comic book movie. So naturally, comic book sales have increased because of this popularity boost in your superhero movies. Places like us can really feel like the popularity boost of these characters. And so they're different readers though. These are more people that want to read the graphic novels as opposed to the floppy issues. So they're coming in as people who haven't been into comic books before. They're coming in and they're like, I would like to read a Thor story, or I would like to read a Spider-Man story. And they don't want to collect month by month. They just want to grab their comic now, their graphic novel, and go home. And so, a lot of the graphic novels now and collections are becoming a lot more popular than the issues.
Why do you think superheroes are very important in our society?
Superheroes are, I do think they are important in society. They do, they lend very good messages to younger people. Always do the right thing, always be honourable, always, protect people that are weaker, and all those kind of moral things that you everyone should have in them, and it should be instilled in them from a very young age. So superheroes do that job really well. So that is quite important. On the other hand, though, I think that like for the younger readers as well, there's a whole bunch of like other stuff out there because superheroes become more popular. The actual it's expanding out into like more and more like different universes and things. And now you have not just superheroes, you have sci-fi, you've got fantasy, you've got horror, you've got younger readers stuff, you've got every genre now is covered in graphic novels, which is really interesting and cool, like normal books.
So what do you think, why the comics can shape the society?
Whoa, I don't know.
Is that because of the superhero, the story that comics give to our reader?
I don't know if, so you're saying do comics shape society as a whole?
As a whole one?
I don't know if they're that powerful yet. Definitely films and I know the Marvel films and the Marvel Studios have definitely shaped a whole new generation of readers and how people see superheroes. No, superheroes now are no longer, like back in the day, people used to read comics, like you're saying, like your early comics, and so people who read them always considered, like they might be a nerd or or they're not cool or that. Now everyone reads comics, so it's not just like the nerdy kids. Now like the cool kids, like adults. We have adults come in, mum and dads come in and buy graphic novels. We've got a nana that comes in every week and drops like $100 on graphic novels that she orders in. So they're quite powerful now, as in like they are really aimed towards and really appealing to a wider range of people.
Yeah, so I remember used to be in the 90s when I used to need to go online to get like the Death of the Superman. So not all people during that time recommended comic. They say, what's that? Can you learn something on a comic? It's all graphics, but now everyone, it's definitely you often I've come across that before as well with dealing with schools. You get some teachers who'll be like, if kids are reading comics, their mind isn't stimulated, and I really don't think that's true, because you have your panels, and then you have your gutters in between, and that is where the magic of comics happens. So as your eyes go across one panel to the next, your mind turns on and goes into like turbo mode to create these micro stories of how these two images relate to each other to tell a story. So your mind's doing that in between every single panel. Then you've got your dialogue and your speech bubbles that you're dealing with, and then you've got your sound effects that you're dealing with, and then you've got your graphics. So all that is getting combobulated together to tell a story. There is no way in the world that your mind is super switched on when you're reading comics. You're getting like all your senses to create the story. It's very cool. So what do you think? So because I'm watching if you know the CW channel in the US, they're creating an Infinity Crisis. Have you heard that the episode that they're making it from the Flash, from the Superman, they're creating a new Infinity Crisis?
So CW stuff like Flash, Arrow, and all stuff like that.
Yep, they're gonna do like.
So they're gonna do well. They didn't do very well with Flashpoint.
That elsewhere, yeah.
They could do that. In Infinity Crisis and Crisis on Infinite Earths and all that kind of stuff. Final Crisis, all the crises.
Yep.
They'll be really hard to do. They could do it, and I they can do it, because I thought that they couldn't create a good superhero movie franchise, and they've done it. The Marvel universe has knocked it out of the park. DC's still licking their wounds, but I don't know how they're gonna go with it. It's gonna be a hard slog. It's not an easy story to tell,
because Brandon Roth, the Superman Return, they're gonna be put as a Superman again on that television show as well.
Yeah, right.
So it's much interesting to go back as a Superman again.
Wonder who Batman's gonna be.
It's only, I think
could be anyone.
Yeah, it could be anyone.
These days, Batman's a dime a dozen.
Yeah.
Anyone can be Batman.
So what is your main motivation as a co-owner setting up this store, the Greenlight Comic?
My vibe, and the vibe that all of us wanted to do, was that we wanted to create a really accessible comic shop. one that wasn't scary, because a lot of comic shops are boys clubs, you know what I mean? And we wanted to make it inviting to everyone. So we went out and thought about it a lot, and we decided to, instead of having our books in publisher, we decided to have them in genre, like a normal bookshop or a video shop. It was actually based on a video shop. So we have our genres of horror, as I said, fantasy and science fiction. So if someone's coming in and they don't know anything about comics, but they know what they like. So I'll say to someone, what do you like? Do you like science fiction and that? And they're like, oh yeah, they've just got a whole section there in alphabetical order of all the good science fiction stuff. Our other model was that we wanted to have more killer and no filler, as in like we really wanted to curate down our collection into just the really good books and they're going to last the time and that. And then we will always have a volume 1 in stock. If there are other volumes, we leave it up to the customer. We have to order in, and to do that, we created a really good membership system that we could a digital membership system that locks into all with our distributor and everything like that. So if you order stuff in, it never gets missed and stuff like that, which is always one of the hard things to running a comic shop. And I still reckon we have hardly even missed anything in like the 3 or 4 years that we've been open for anyone, which is really good.
Do you know what's the expensive comics?
What is the most expensive comic? So you had to go back pretty far with that kind of thing. I think at the moment, Amazing Fantasy #1 is the most expensive comic, and only people like Nicolas Cage and those crazy superstars have them. It's selling in the millions. Don't quote me on this, but it's. I think the last time I heard it moved was for like $1.2 million or something like that. I think I might be completely 100% wrong.
Not the Action 1 of Superman?
Yeah, Action 1. That's the other one. So that's more the DC side.
DC side, yeah.
Yeah, and then Amazing Fantasy is like the first appearance of Spider-Man, I think.
Are you Marvel or DC?
I'm Image. I love
Just
Image.
on the safe side.
Remember Image stuff back in the 90s? It was like Spawn and that, and then they went away. And then they came back powerful with stuff like Saga and like all these things. And Saga is our highest selling graphic novel in the shop. Easy. It's such a chronically good series, and anyone who can read it, even if you're not into comics, you can read Saga.
So Image, that's a different one from DC and Marvel.
Very different. They're all their vibe is everything's creator owned. So if you create something for Image, then you own the rights. So if you go and then a TV company comes to you and goes, we'd like to make a TV show out of it. As the creator, you get all the rights and the money out of it. So you own your IP when you create stuff for Image. Yeah.
I was waiting for a long time to... Hopefully there's going to be another movie of Spawn, because the first one is not... it's not on the comics.
I loved it as a kid, though. I thought it was great fun. I watched it recently, and I'm like, oh my God, this has the worst graphics. Yeah. It looks like a bad cutscene from a video game. But yeah, I would love a good new Spawn film, but it would have to be rated R. Yeah. Like its whole vibe was so gnarly, and that's where Image came in, and they were just creating these real gnarly comics for teenagers, and that was in the huge comic boom as well. There was a gigantic one which I don't think will ever happen again, where even comic writers and illustrators were superstars. Robert Liefeld was advertising jeans for Levi's and stuff on television, That's not going to happen again to comic creators.
So in Adelaide right now, so what is the community of comics in Adelaide?
As in the creators?
The creators.
There is a huge community of Adelaide comic creators. It's been growing and growing for years. In fact, we've got a whole section dedicated to just local comics, and they're all real good graphic novels, colour. Lots of people come from interstate, and they're amazed about how good the Adelaide local comic scene is. They have a whole bunch of there's a whole bunch of events and stuff that they do. I think there's one coming up soon called Xena Warrior Print Fest or something. Zine Warrior Print Fest. Or something. I think that's its name. Yeah, it's a really good community of creators here. There is an event once a month called Comics with Friends and Strangers, held, I think it's a Box Factory still. And that, I think 40 creators go to that every month to do drawings, and there's talks and stuff like that. It's run by Georgina Chatterton, one of my employees. and she is also a local comic creator and stuff like that. But the scene is really good. It's really impressive, and a lot of good talent coming out.
So as a you say as an illustrator as well,
Yep.
and a writer as well, what is your advice to young people that is wanted to create a comics, a character, a superheroes? What is your advice to them?
Well, creating a superhero comic is hard. There are so much of it out there. If you want to work for Marvel and DC, that is such a hard mission to do. You know, they have you'd have to be in the game forever doing it. But my advice, for people who want to create comics these days, and even if it's superheroes and stuff like that, is self-publish first. Get online, create a webcomic. Webcomics are free to create. You know what I mean? You get an account, and then you create your comic. If your comic is good, and people want to follow it, they will start following it. You know what I mean? You've got no there's no outlay, there's no risk. You create your webcomic. If your webcomic's good enough and you're like, wow, this is going really good, then do a self-published print run. And you print them yourself, and then sell them. If you sell out in your print run, then maybe start approaching a lot comic book companies and stuff like that. A lot of people these days though make a lot of money just from doing self-published stuff. And then later on, the comic companies come to them and ask them to have some of their older work published, stuff like Sunstone and stuff like that. They were originally online, and then they gone on to do that. Nimona, which is Nolly Stevens. She is Nimona started as a webcomic. Now it's like our second or third highest graphic novel selling. So my advice is to start online, start as a webcomic, self-publish, go from there. Because if your comic's good, people will start following you online. You know what I mean? And then there's no risk. You don't want to create something, pay for a giant print run, and then realize that no one likes it, and you're stuck with 1 million copies. So that's kind of the new way people are doing it these days. The self-publishing thing is golden at the moment, especially with such easy ways to print comics these days. The old days, man, because I used to make comics, self-published comics and that. It was photocopiers, black and white. No one had color. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
no one could afford color. It was black and white, grey tones and stuff like that. They were great days. I loved them.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah. 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So. But so self-publish. That's really your best advice. On the digital side of it, on the graphic side of it, the drawings, if you just want to be a comic book artist, my advice to that is, obviously, if you want to do your superhero stuff, you're just going to practice and practice and practice and practice and practice and practice and practice. But if you want to create something new and exciting, a lot of people when they're younger, when they come in, they're like, "How do you draw? How do you learn to draw?" I always say emulate. Find the people you love, your artists that you think are the best, and emulate them. Draw like them. Copy their pictures. Copy their styles. Because when you're starting off, it doesn't matter. There's no one that you're not selling them. And then as you go on, once you get comfortable in your drawing and your abilities, then develop your own style. And from that, no one started with their own style. All the best comic book, people like Frank Quietly, the artist, and John Cassaday and all stuff like that, they would have started copying other people. You look at Mike Mignola and stuff like that. They got a really distinct style. The guy did Hellboy. He started off if you look at his really, really early comics, they're just really kind of normal. And stuff like that. Frank Miller has a real distinctive style with the Dark Knight Returns. Yep. When he started working for DC and when he worked for Marvel and that, when he Punishes and stuff like that, they look exactly just like Marvel comics. They don't even look like his style. So everyone starts off emulating their heroes and then branches off into their own style eventually.
That's great advice. Thank you so much for that advice.
That's all right. I can talk all day about this stuff. You can probably tell.
Aside from that, you also have your own podcast. It's Hack the Dino.
Hack the Dino, yeah. So
what is Hack the Dino?
So Hack the Dino has nothing to do with comics.
Okay, so that's
it's all video game based stuff.
Okay.
Basically, it's a podcast. It's a podcast, a vodcast, or webisodes, whatever they call it. And it's basically everything about video games. We have video game news, video game reviews, it's a gaming channel on YouTube basically. So it started off as a podcast that we recorded here in the shop. And it was half and half about comics, but as we went on, it just kind of evolved into more of a gaming thing. And now we do let's plays, live streams, and stuff like that. So Hack the Dino. So check it out if you like video games.
Well, yep. So do you think comics can be also a game as well? Interrelation?
Yeah. Well, it's all that craft of graphics, visuals, dialogue, all melding together. Most films start as storyboards, and storyboards are just basically comics. So every film starts as a comic, if you want to think of it like that. Storyboards are comic books. They work the same. They tell the story, and from then they make their shots from them. So yeah, that all, and video games are quite similar. They still storyboard their video games and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely the style and the people growing up, people now who are growing up, who are adults, started growing up with comic books. So now it's got this different vibe to it. You know what I mean? Like, adults don't think they're stupid things that, only kids read. Now adults realize how important they are to creative people, to the creative society, to TV shows, to films. And as I said before, the Marvel films have proven how important they are. They're making the most amount of money for someone out there ever. So yeah, comics have stepped up to the plate.
So what do you think in the next 5 years to Greenlight Comics?
What's Greenlight going to do? Well, yeah. I hope we're open. Greenlight is we're expanding the shop a little bit here. You can see we're in a section here which used to be our events area, but we're kind of winding down on some of the events and stuff like that, and keeping some of them, the ones that are really successful and really supportive of the shop, but maybe getting some more shelves, getting some more sections, getting some more stock, and stuff like that. Dreams. I want to knock some walls out as well and put some holes in some walls and stuff like that. I have to get permission first. Basically, we just want to keep growing and just continually supplying comics with people. We are dabbling in the idea of online stores, but that would involve a lot of upgrading our systems and stuff like that. But we are definitely, it is on the cards, and it comes up in the meetings and stuff like that, as in our shop meetings. But yeah, that is basically it. We just cruising along. We just want to get as many graphic novels in people's hands as we possibly can, because then word spreads. Get a lot of young readers into as well. We really, really, really concentrate on our young reader section. It is a very large section in the shop. It's probably as much younger reader stock we have as superhero stock, because that is where you get them. You get them young. Kids start getting into comics. They grow up and they stay with it their entire life. So the more people get into it, the better.
So just what last word you want? Invite them.
So
to the shop.
So thank you very much for this opportunity. So come down to Greenlight Comics. We're in Adelaide in 18 Stevens Place, just off the Myer Centre, just off Rundle Mall down the side of the Myer Centre. You will be welcomed with a beautiful face, a beautiful employee, and we can help you out in your anything graphic novels, anything comic as well. We can help you out.
All right. Thank you so much, Dan. Thank you so much for the opportunity that as a guest of our show. Thank you so much.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be on your show. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This is another episode of Guerrilla Podcast Fresh Eyes. See you next week again for another exciting topic. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so you're notified when a new episode is posted in Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, or via RSS. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, rate and review this podcast and share it with your friends. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. And if you want to know more, check out kangaroofern.com.